Jaya Radha, Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari, Jaya Sripad Paramaham Sattva Jagacharya Sotara to the Srimad, His Divine Loving Grace. Abhacharya Govinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. His confounder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki. Kirtanesvara Bhagavatam ki. Nitagora Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Padantikam Vandayam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Shagajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavani Ishvare Vasubhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namaste Girajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Shesha Kalesha Nashaya Paramanandanaine Vancha Kalpatarabhischa Kripa Sindhubhye Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mare Kabando Matsangin Madguru Manmadana Madnistaraka Madbhagya Madananda Namostute Asaru Saru Tadayana Dini Chochatakara Hanamuncha Karachinmam Premno Hritkateo Spuraha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritta Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye Nasta Preshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Shevaya Bhagavate Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance on classes in the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome of the heart is practically eradicated, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, whose praise of the transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, one should offer his respectful obeisances under the personality of Godhead Narayan, under Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, under Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and under Srila Vyasadeva, the author. There's mosquitoes here. They're not gone yet. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, Text 82. Right? Is there a mosquito here? He's trying to get me. He's trying to get me. Tatra ekagramanadiro Govinda charana bhujam Vimukta sangodnum bhajan Bhaktya tat samayatam agat Tatra ekagramanadiro Govinda charana bhujam Mukta sango nubhajan Bhakti-tat samyatam agat. Tatraikagra manadiro. Govinda charanam bhujam. Vimukta sanganu bhajan. Bhakti-tat samyatam agat. It says bhajan, but I keep saying bhojan. It shows where my consciousness is. Yeah. Tatraika Gramanadiro. Govinda Charana Bhujam. Bhajan. Bhakti-tat samyatam agat. Bhakti-tat samyatam agat. Tat samyatam agat.
You say it again.
Tatraika Gramanadiro. Govinda Janam Bhujam. Vimukta Sanganu Bhajan. Bhakti-tat samyatam agat. Tatraika Gramanadiro. Govinda Charanam Bhujam. Mukta Sanganu Bhajan. Bhakti-tat samyatam agat. Okay, word for word. Tatraika Gramanadiro. Govinda Charanam Bhujam.
Vimukta Sanganu Bhajan.
Vimukta Sanganu Bhajan.
Bhakti-tat samyatam agat.
Bhakti-tat samyatam agat. Tatra. There. Eka agramanaha. With full attention. Dhiraha. Sober. Govinda. Of Krishna. Charna ambujam. Under the lotus feet. Vimukta. Freed from. Sangha. Material association. Anubhajan. Continuously engaging in devotional service. Bhaktya. By pure devotion. Tat. With the Lord. Samyatam. Qualitative equality. Agat. Achieved. Purport. Translation and purport. By His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Having undergone austerities and penances at Kapila Ashram, King Prachinibari attained full liberation from all material designations. He constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and attained a spiritual position qualitatively equal to that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. There is a special significance in the words Tat Sam Yatam Agat, which indicate that the king attained the position of possessing the same status or the same form as that of the Lord. This definitely proves that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always a person. In his impersonal feature, he is the rays of his transcendental body. When a living entity attains spiritual perfection, he also attains the same type of body known as Satchit Ananda Vigraha. The spiritual body never mixes with material elements. Although in conditional life, the living entity is surrounded by material elements, earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and ego, he remains always aloof from them. In other words, the living entity can be liberated from the material condition at any moment, provided that he wishes to do so. The material environment is called Maya, according to Krishna. Daiveshu gunamayi mama maya dharatyaya mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. As soon as the living entity engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he immediately attains freedom from all material conditions. Sagunan samatit yaitan brahmabhuya yakalpate. In the material state, the living entity is on the Jiva Bhuta platform. But when he renders devotional service to the Lord, he is elevated to the Brahma Bhuta platform. On the Brahma Bhuta platform, the living entity is liberated from material bondage, and he engages in the service of the Lord. In this verse, the word dhira is sometimes read as vira. Actually, there is not very much difference. The word dhira means sober, and vira means hero. One who is struggling against Maya is a hero. You're all heroes. And one who is sober enough to understand his position is a dhira. Without becoming sober or heroic, one cannot attain spiritual salvation. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Prachadare Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatade Shatade Namaste Jivanandaya Dasaya Vanachanine Prabhupada Balavaya Srinasvadavanarine Agyana Dvanta Brahmanam Paschachapatitadmanam Gyana Gurute Achitarine Chakshashe Namaha. So this is a powerful moment in the Bhagavatam. King Prachini Bari has come. He's been transformed by Narada Muni. By the association of a pure devotee of Krishna, he's been transformed. And we see this happening in our lives. We're lucky enough to be at the temple and be with the devotees and see this happening. Just last night I was watching this happen. Watching, one of our people who's been coming to the temple for 5 or 6 months now, 5 months or so. Seeing that person associate with the Bhagavatam and associate with my spiritual master, and seeing how that person is just on the verge of giving everything to Krishna. You can see it in their eyes. You can see it in their consciousness. Since they've been coming, they've given up meat, they've given up alcohol, they've given up cigarettes. They've given up so many things. So this is the power of devotional service. And we're in the line of Narada Muni, so we also have that potency. Last night, Guru Maharaj mentioned something very nicely. He said that if you were actually doing this properly, you should know you can impact lives. Not think you can, not have a feeling you can, but know you can impact lives, because you are in that spiritual potency by engaging in Krishna's service. So the truth is coming to light here that Prachini Bari, who was very much engrossed in animal sacrifices and being a mundane good person, you can call that mundanely good. He was doing so-called pious activities, and now he has come to the stage of full surrender, where he's left his kingdom to go and practice austerities for the perfection of human life. So we're remembering this verse. Let me see if I remember it. Nayam deho deha bhajam nirloke kastan kamanarate vid bhujamye tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shudyed yasmad brahma sokyam tvanantam. This is a very powerful verse here, spoken by Lord Rishabhdev. It's in that spiritual yoga book, first verse of that spiritual yoga book. I believe it's fifth chapter of the 5th canto, verse 1, but it might be a different chapter. And anyhow, Lord Rishabhdev is explaining that this human life is not meant to live the life of hogs, dogs, camels, and asses and get that enjoyment which is available to those creatures. Kastan kaman arate vid bhujamye. It's not meant for this animal enjoyment. Rather, tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam. Tapo divyam, it's meant for divine austerities. What are divine austerities? Divine austerities are specifically referring to those austerities which lead to devotional service. Don't be confused and think that if you're a yogi in a cave, or you're doing any type of austerity, or you think that you're some great ascetic, that you're on the level that we're speaking of. This is tapo divyam, divine austerities for the purpose of sattva. You're becoming purified. Shudyed yasmed brahma sokyam tunantam, so you can attain brahma sokyam, this transcendental spiritual happiness, which is tunantam, never ending and ever increasing. Prabhupada explains it, translates it to the divine position of devotional service, which is susukam kartamavyayam, very blissful and ever increasing, never ending also. So this is the purpose of human life. And unless we engage in this activity, our human life is considered wasted. we will get another life, not necessarily a human life, likely a human life, but if we've done any type of spiritual activity. But in any case, if one wastes their human life by not coming to the stage of devotional service to God, loving God, then such a life is wasted. It's described, Dharma swanushtita pumsam vishvakshena katashviyaha notpad yadatim ratim shrama eva kevalam. Sutta Goswami, in the second chapter of the first canto, explains that Dharma swanushtita pumsam, those activities in human society, those dharmas, and we're not speaking of sinful activities here, we're speaking of dharmas, those dharmas done in human society that don't lead to Vishvakshena Kata Rati, that don't lead to this attachment to the message of Vishvakshena. Who's Vishvakshena? It's Krishna. So the message of Krishna, what is Krishna's message? Surrender. This is Krishna's message. Surrender to me and love me. So that those austerities, those activities, those dharmas that don't lead to attraction to the message of Vishvakshena, they are Shrama Eva Kevalam. They're useless labor. They're useless labor. They're pointless. And it's kind of one of those heavy points, but we can understand it if we break down the philosophies and the various types of so-called spiritual philosophies and genuine spiritual philosophies. So Prabhupada brings out in the purport that this personal liberation is real liberation, because he mentions that the living entity remains an individual. Krishna, of course, in his very first instruction, says, Natvevaham datunasvam natwamnimi janadipaha nachaiva nabhavishama, that never was there a time when I didn't exist, nor you, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So Krishna is establishing this basis that the living entity is an individual. The living entity is, of course, part of Krishna, part and parcel of Krishna. And in that sense, the living entity is one with Krishna. So we have this concept here where it's saying that King Prachinibari attained a spiritual position qualitatively equal to that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have what's called qualitative oneness. You have qualitative oneness with God, but you do not have quantitative oneness with God, because the Supreme Whole remains the Supreme Whole. You're completely perfect as a part, but he's completely perfect as a whole. So it's a very confusing topic for those who don't have actual spiritual knowledge and shastric knowledge. What is liberation? What is liberation in the first place? Anybody have any idea? Lalita Priya?
Liberation is not being entangled in material energy.
Simple enough. Question. Do devotees aspire for liberation? It's not our goal. It's not even our goal. We have no interest in it. Salokya sharshti samipya sarupyaika tamapyutaha dhyamanam nagrinati vinamat sevanam janaha. Lord Kapila Dev described, Devahuti describes Salokya sharshti samipya, that whether it be Salokya, which is entering into the same realm of existence as God, the same planet as God, Salokya sharshti samipya sarupya kratamapyuta, whether you're getting the same form of God, the same planet as God, the same opulences as God, whether you're becoming one with God, in any case, the devotee is not interested in those things, because if he doesn't have the opportunity to serve, it's useless for him, because the devotee's understanding is love. The devotee is in love with Krishna, is in love with God, and therefore the devotee is already liberated. Just by virtue of that love, liberation is a simple byproduct. Yes?
Does that mean that some people, get liberated, maybe they get the same form as God, or they have the same planet as God, but they're not devotees?
I have asked that question before to my Bhakti Vaibhava teachers, and they have said yes, and they have also said no. So I can't tell you that. But actually what they said was, what the very authoritative teacher said was, no, anybody who goes to, the planet of Vishnu or Krishna, they are always devotees. But if one desires liberation just for the opulence of God, the being one with God, just to associate with God without the idea of serving God even, right? Because we can say that, like, I want to see God. How many times do we hear people say, if God exists, show him to me. So this is, if you see God, but you don't want to serve, then that's also useless. So residing on the same planet, personal association with, taking the same form of, achieving the opulences, or merging into the existence of the Lord, those are all not wanted by devotees. Vinamat sevanam jana, because there's no seva. We want seva. And so we understand that even if one is in hell, one is no association with the Lord, but if one is serving the Lord, that person is always happy. But one who is just achieving so-called liberation, he's actually not satisfied because he has this desire, this selfish desire to want liberation. So the devotee stands above all other levels of liberation. And therefore, the very first verse of the Bhagavatam, or second verse of the Bhagavatam, Dharma projito kaitavotra paramo nirmat saranam satam, that this Bhagavatam is establishing a religion for those who are completely free of envy by rejecting those cheating religions. What are cheating religions? Cheating dharmas, kaitava dharmas, those dharmas where you want material opulences, you want sense gratification, you want to be a so-called good person, or you want to be liberated. Those are called kaitava dharmas. They're not welcomed by the devotees of the Lord who are free of envy. Why? Because each one of those is selfishly motivated. First thing you want is sense gratification. Well, actually, the first thing you want is dharma. This is a dharma, that let me be a good person. Let me be a good person, because by being a good person and doing good karma, I get artha. I get good karma, therefore I get money, I get the ability to enjoy myself. Dharma, artha, and because of that artha, I can get kama. I can enjoy myself now. And then after I've enjoyed dharma, artha, and kama, now I've done with those things, I'm no longer interested in kama. Now let me go and, go to the mountains, go to the forest, and find liberation. So in this way, this is called kaitava dharma. The devotee is not interested in any of these things. He's interested in serving Krishna. And by serving Krishna, one is already liberated. Prabhupada was once going to Kumbh Mela, and he was with his disciples. Prabhupada said many, millions of people come here to bathe in the Ganges, where the Ganges and the Yamuna meet at Prayag. And Prabhupada says, because if they bathe on this night, they become liberated. Prabhupada said, of course, we're already liberated. Why? Because we're performing devotional service. What is material entanglement for one performing devotional service? Where is the material entanglement? Can you explain it to me? Can someone give an example of material entanglement for one genuinely performing devotional service? There's no question of it. Because that person is acting only for Krishna. And his will and Krishna's will are one. They have qualitative oneness. And so he's just an instrument for God's divine will, God's internal potency. Such a person is completely satisfied. Mam cha yovya bicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatit yaitan brahma bhuya yakalpate. For one who performs unceasing devotional service, never falling down in any circumstance. That's the key. Such a person is sagunan samatit yaitan. He's above the modes of nature. And he reaches the level of Brahman. He understands perfectly clear he's not this body. And such a person is liberated from all material entanglements. He doesn't get involved. So it's a very simple process. Simply engage in the service of the Lord. You can take all of your material conditioning and you can just use it in the service of Krishna. And you, at the same time, apply the medication of chanting Hare Krishna, taking Krishna Prasadam, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with the devotees. You apply that medication and purification will very rapidly take place in the heart and mind. Shrinvata swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridyantasto hibhadrani vidanoti saritsatam. Because Krishna is in our heart and he cleanses the desire for material enjoyment in the heart of a devotee who has developed the desire to hear his messages. which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So talk about punya and papa, pious karma, good karma, bad karma. The best way to get good karma, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, is to hear Bhagavatam. Because there's different types of so-called good karma, or sukriti, you can say. There's bhakti mukhi sukriti, which is that sukriti, that good karma, which gives you bhakti, which leads to bhakti later on. You did something for the temple, you gave some money to a devotee, you helped out a sadhu, bhakti mukhi sukriti. Then there's sukriti that leads to liberation, and then there's sukriti that leads to good karma. So if someone does some bhakti, they get some agyata sukriti. Then in the end, the agyata sukriti, what does that add up to? If someone over many lifetimes, they're giving a little to the temple here and there, and they're they can be completely sinful, but they shed Hare Krishna one time, So what does that lead to? Eventually, what's that all culminate in?
Devotional service.
Yeah, but more specific than devotional service. Yeah, they meet a pure devotee. They get the opportunity to meet a pure devotee of the Lord. And that pure devotee can completely change them. So we're understanding this qualitative oneness, that devotees aren't interested in any of these types of liberation. There's 5 types of liberation. They're not interested in this. Rather, they're interested in serving Krishna. And so we should understand there's a duality in Mayavadi philosophy. The duality of Mayavadi philosophy is that Mayavadis say, what do they say? It's all one. They say that everything is false. Everything is illusion. So how are we to understand everything is illusion if there's also a sense of non-illusion? So immediately the Mayavadi philosophy starts off with duality. They call themselves Advaita, but actually they're Dvaita. Because first thing that happens is there is Maya and then there's Brahman. So what is that? Maya and Brahman, where does Maya come from? Maya can cover Brahman, therefore there's immediate duality. Prabhupada uses the term in the Bhagavad Gita that for Satan is greater than God because Maya can cover Brahman. So immediately you have duality. Whenever you take this Mayavadi philosophy, which is called Advaita, first thing you have is Brahman and Maya, which are opposites and are dualistic. Where is Maya coming from, and why does Maya have the potency to cover Brahman? This is dualistic consciousness, and therefore the philosophy is false. It's not genuine Advaita philosophy. It's not genuine oneness. Rather, the Achincha Bheda philosophy defeats that philosophy by stating that there is one, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom all energies are emanating, including Brahman and including Maya. Therefore, by the interaction of the Lord's one energy, you get different circumstances where the living entity can be covered by Maya, or the living entity can be covered by Brahman, can be in the light and understanding what is God. But in any case, both Maya and Brahman are coming from that very Para Brahman, that Krishna. And so this is a Achincha Bheda Tattva, wherein the Lord and the Lord's energies exist simultaneously. However, the Lord is the master of his energies, and he is never covered by his energies. Mayata tamidam sarvam jagat avyaktina mortinaha matstani sarvabhutani nachaham te shavashtitaha. That by me, in my unmanifested form, all the worlds are pervaded. I am in everything, yet everything is not in me. Krishna is in everything, yet everything is not in him. He still stands above the modes of material nature. He's unaffected by the modes of material nature. So overcoming Maya means full surrender. If we want to overcome Maya for real, or not just talk about it, mental liberation, if you actually want to overcome Maya, then you have to have full surrender. I made this point that, the Mayavadis, And especially now, there are different levels of Mayavadis, but, the people we meet who are, in the into Mayavadi philosophy, I just want to tell them, stop trying to get high. It's just what they're doing. They're still trying to get high. They just realize, they're smart enough to realize that if I keep trying to get high this way, I'm going to jack my life up beyond repair. So let me try to get high by merging into God. And so they take all their spiritual practices as a means to get high. Which, there's some attraction there. All the spiritual processes I want to feel good, I want to be happy, that's natural. But that's not where we stay. That's a good beginning point, but that's not a good ending point. So, they want to merge into God to basically feel good. But this is not the real way. Krishna says, if you want to actually overcome Maya, Daiviheshu gunamai mama maya dharatya, surrender unto me. By surrendering to Krishna, then we can overcome Maya. But otherwise, how can we? By our own efforts? By your millions of lifetimes of yoga? And,
This one's hidden.
yeah. It doesn't really make sense. And so it's very hard for many people to accept that the world is in Maya. But this person is he has a beard. He's got an orange robe and a beard. How can he be in Maya?
You don't have a beard, but maybe that's not.
Yeah. Right. Or you can say the other side, this person's bald. He's wearing orange robes. How is he in Maya? He speaks really nice. He can do mystic things. He can produce some ash in his hand. So many things. They think, this person is spiritually advanced. How is this? This is people without knowledge being impressed by magic tricks, essentially. They have no knowledge. They have no knowledge. That's a really serious thing. But when one surrenders to Krishna, no matter what position one is, one can overcome material energy. Because one makes that decision, now I'm going to serve Krishna. And so one gets immediate relief from that suffering, that Maya. We all experience that, no? We surrender to Krishna, then I'm relieved. I'm relieved of suffering. But once you start making your own plan to enjoy, we may be surrendered to some degree, but then, Maya creeps back in and now we start making our own plan. I'm going to do this, and I have a plan in life about how I'm going to be Krishna conscious, but simultaneously have a little Maya on the side. Then to that degree, we're going to have anxiety. Because there's always that potentiality. You're not going to get what you want. It's not going to go the way you want it. Correct? And you're taking shelter of that which is not Krishna, which is the definition of Maya. The solution is not to change our position in life, not to change our ashram, to change our job, to change the place we stay. That's not the solution. The solution is to be Krishna conscious. There's always that temptation that if I change the position I'm in, if there's another material arrangement, if I change the people I'm with, the place I live, the circumstances, then somehow or another I'm going to be happier. But that has never worked, not one time, for anybody. So the solution is to be Krishna conscious. When the South Indian Brahmin wanted to go with Lord Chaitanya, what did Lord Chaitanya tell him? Stay here. You don't have to take sannyas. Just chant Hare Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, do the process. Go back to Godhead. So why do we have to change anything? We should simply focus on our spiritual life. Because you see how Maya is a waste of our energies. That once I start making my own plans, now my mental energy is going into that which is not. And so once that starts happening, then how am I going to chant Hare Krishna with full attention? How am I going to do service with full attention? So it's a psychological fact. If you study some psychology, that if we're repressing a lot of stuff and we don't want to accept who we are, we become really exhausted because the mind is working very hard to block out all these things. So we feel exhausted. But the person, as you advance, you become less tired because you become more enthusiastic to perform service because you understand I'm not this body. And therefore you can engage in serious service. So the only way to overcome Maya is to fully surrender to Krishna. And that means to make Krishna the goal of life, fully and wholly. And to give ourselves to the 9 processes of bhakti. And perform our prescribed duties best we can. If that's what the Vaishnavas and the spiritual master are asking of us. But in any case, if we don't make the chanting a priority, if we don't make the reading a priority, if we don't make the deity worship a priority, if we don't follow nicely the process, then those material dharmas don't really do very much for us. However, if one gives up all his material dharma, if one doesn't perform his duties properly, but somehow or another becomes attached to the hearing and chanting process and the service of the Lord, such a person may fall down from that service, but he's not lost. He doesn't lose anything. But a person who does everything perfectly according to his material dharma, but doesn't develop genuine attraction for the holy name and for guna rupa nama lila of Krishna, such a person is not advancing. There's no gain. Tvaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam harir bhajana pagvo napatet tato yadi yatra kvababa dharma buddham usyakim kovarta apta bhajatam swadharmata kovarta apto bhajatam swadharmata. Narada Muni explains this to Vyas. Even a person tvaktva swadharmam, if they let go of their swadharma, tvaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam harir, to engage in the bhajan of the lotus feet of Hari. Bhajana pakbo tapatet tato yadi, but fall down from that bhajan due to immaturity. There is no loss, however. But such a person who does his dharma perfectly without being attracted to Hari's name, there's no gain. So only in that desire, that full desire to surrender, can we actually overcome Maya. We have to become a dhira. This is what this is saying. A dhira, a hero and a dhiro. It says. So, how do you become a hero? A hero and a dhira hero, a sober hero. Soberness means we're not affected by the material energy. We're not going to get cheated. We're not going to be flies, mosquitoes. Some of the three kleshas.
Don't be so affected by the material energy.
This is not dhira. Undhira. So we should become dhira, means sober-minded. We become sober by understanding, first and foremost, we're not this body. Understand the material world is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. If you don't understand the world as a place of misery and temporal, how much are you going to have a hard time in life? Such a relief when you realize, the world is miserable. That's a relief. People say, you're so negative. That's what they say. They say you're negative. The Hare Krishnas have a very negative outlook on life, but actually we're not negative. The lie you're telling yourself is very negative. You're lying to yourself, trying to say you can enjoy a sack of stool and bones that's going to die and just has so much pain involved. You lie to yourself. And then we say that actually it's temporary, find spiritual happiness, but then we're negative. But actually we're positive because we're telling the truth. That's what you hear, the New Age community. It's always about to happen. We're going to go into the 5D shift. And then everything's going to be easy and cool. They don't ever talk about the fact that unless we magically become immortal, then you're still going to get sick. You're still going to die. You're still going to get old. You're still going to have to say goodbye to all the people you love. So there's no difference, actually. It's just it's hoping against hope that somehow I can enjoy materially, rather than hoping against hope that I can somehow or another serve Krishna. They have full faith. They're fully surrendered to Maya. And Maya is going to eventually, someday, it's going to work.
And then they also have that faith, even if it works for them, right? And everything's just so sweet and chill and cool for them, right? Well, what about the people in Gaza that are starving to death, right?
Yeah. Trump's going to save us, they say. So I've heard this, Trump's a light-working hero, They sometimes they compare him to like Jesus Christ, I've actually heard people blaspheme Jesus Christ to defend Donald Trump. And I'm not political at all. And I don't think politics should be really brought into the Bhagavatam class, your opinions. That's a good way to turn off half the population from Krishna consciousness, because you have an opinion. But we can agree from scripture that they're all demons. That's the conclusion. But, if you're going to bring your politics into Bhagavatam class, then, half your audience you're preaching to is likely going for the other guy. But you're so enlightened in your material knowledge that you understand things properly. This is not real good preaching technique, but people don't think that way because they're not really thinking about making devotees a lot of the time. They're thinking about how wonderful I sound on the Vyasa song. But actually, if you want to make devotees, you have to think like that. And so we see who makes and who doesn't make devotees. But in any case, we should become Dhira. Dhira means that we're not affected by these politics. These politics are going to go on. There's one metal song called Demons by Demons Driven. This is I always think of that song when I look at it. It's Demons by Demons Driven. It's just demons doing demon things for demoniac ends. There's no getting interested in it. Besides, maybe it's a little entertaining once in a while. Besides that, it's pretty much to think that that's going to solve any of your problems is totally pointless. You can't solve your problems. The politicians aren't going to solve your problems. They're not going to solve any society problems. They're not going to solve any problems at all. They're all demons. So what's going to solve your problem? It's not changing material circumstances. It is becoming Krishna conscious. That's the only thing that's going to solve the problems. So I'll make a few more points. That one point is that, our philosophy is foolproof for, like those New Age people and for all the sentimental people out there who want, who have a sentiment to be spiritual. It's not that it's evil. They don't have any knowledge with that sentiment. But the sentiment of most people can understand that love is the highest thing. Love above all else. All you need is love. And so if you accept that, if you can just accept that single truth, that love above all things, then Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness is the absolute truth. Because Bhakti Yoga is the only way you can achieve real love. And it's the only way to love everybody. And it's the only way to actually understand that I'm completely selfless. You can't be selfless unless you become a Bhakti Yogi. Otherwise, you're going to be selfish. So everything is solved when one becomes a Bhakti Yogi. So therefore, Prachini Bari is understood, and he's engaging in austerity. What is austerity? Austerity means we do austerity for Sankirtan movement. We do austerity to serve Krishna. We're going to take on austerities anyways, so you might as well take on austerity to serve Krishna. Tolerance is so important in Krishna consciousness. It's actually the magic power. That if you think that I'm unqualified to fully surrender because I have lust, or I have anger, or I have material desires, then you've not understood. Because basically, you have to tolerate these things. But if you tolerate them to serve Krishna, Bhaktaram Yagya Tapasam, then you'll become peaceful in that element of life. There's so many things beyond our control that are going to happen. Because Krishna is Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, but they're in Krishna's control. So we can have faith that they're for my benefit. We can become peaceful in that aspect of life. And if we know that I'm going to make so many friends, I can get married, I can meet so many people, I can get the best job, I can do whatever. But these people aren't actually ultimately my friend. Krishna is the supreme friend. Suridam Sarva Bhutanam. He's the friend of all living entities. So if you accept Krishna as my friend, then you can become peaceful. So we should do austerity so that we can realize ourselves as Brahmabhuta, realize ourselves as not this body. And in that stage, you attain prema. In that stage, you attain love. When you realize you're not this body, if you really realized it, then Vasudevam Sarvamiti. You understand Krishna is the all in all. And that comes by meeting a devotee. So we see that all these pious activities that Prachini Bari did, in a sense, they paid off because somehow or another he had the karma to meet Narada Muni. So by meeting Narada Muni, he became liberated. So we have that karma also to meet Prabhupada in his books and our spiritual masters, our spiritual master, and make progress. Actually surrender, which means that Krishna is the all in all. But until we stop making plans for our enjoyment, until we stop thinking, I'm going to enjoy this way, I'm going to enjoy that way, I'm going to learn so much, or I'm going to have this, we desire honor, we're not humble. What does it mean? You can say, I look really humble, I act really humble, but are you actually humble? Can you chant the holy name of the Lord constantly? I was hearing one verse, I just have to keep talking, it's too nectar. One verse from the Chaitanya Bhagavatam, someone, Bhaktivedanta Maharaj brought this out, that you don't know anything of, Lord Chaitanya says, you don't know anything about bhakti. Lord Chaitanya says, you know nothing about bhakti unless when you say Krishna, you cry. One name of Krishna should make you cry. Otherwise, you don't know anything about bhakti. So how are we to think that I'm some great sadhaka? I'm a great sadhaka. Have you ever even cried a tear for Krishna? So, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But in any case, the way in which you do cry is you give up competing. That's what Bhaktivedanta Maharaj said. He said, when we have this competitive mentality, when we somehow want to think that we're better than other devotees, we can't cry. But to the degree we let that go, then we can make the tears flow. The tears will flow. So those moments if we have cried, we know that whenever you have a moment of encountering Krishna, like, maybe seeing Madhava in Mayapur or something, you just feel yourself so fallen, and then you can cry. So humility doesn't mean any external act. Humility means we're not desiring honor. That means we don't want, honor from the husband or the wife or the girlfriend, or from either devotees, or from the guru even. We don't need that honor. We don't need this person to give me a sidelong glance. give me a little attention. When that has to go, then we can become actually absorbed in chanting. That's real humility, according to Prabhupada's purport. So anyway, any questions? My dearly beloved devotees.
I had one, I forgot.
Okay, Hare Krishna. I'll go to Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
If I remember my question now.